Stiene is a partner at BCG, the global consulting firm that you all know, I think. Right here in Munich, Stiene is based. She actually walked over here. She said, wonderful walk in the Munich winter sun. And she has given us the honor of being here today. Stiene is a global leader of the financial practice of BCG, and she's also a leader of BCG X. Now, when I say X, I'm going to ask later on whether that means AI, but we'll hear all about that in the next hour. For now, I want to welcome Dr. Stiene Reimer on the stage. Welcome to you, and a warm welcome from our students.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, everybody, for having me, and thank you for the patience. I just learned I'm the last thing between you and your drinks, so I'll hope I make it as interesting as possible for all of you. As you've heard, I'm also from BCG X, and I'm sure most of you know what BCG is. BCG X, we are, let's say, the build and development unit. So what we focus on within BCG is developing hands-on keyboard, the different AI, Gen AI solutions, implementing digital strategies. So it's not only slides, it's really hands-on keyboard, delivering software, delivering implementations. This is what we do really as part of BCG, and this is what our X stands for. I would like to take the opportunity today to talk to you about, I think, one of the most revolutionary topics probably from the last decades, which is like generative AI, and the impact that we see it can have, and what we've learned so far from executives around the world. How are they thinking about generative AI? Where do they see the value? But what are also right now, still more than a year into the journey, still a lot of the challenges that we see, and what is thereby also the potential for 24. Before I go there, being a consultant as well, I need to give a bit of a definition and be clear in the way of how we think about the different terms. Because AI has obviously been around already for a longer time. And the way that I would like to think about it is, there is a classical, traditional AI, and there is generative AI. The two of them are very complementary solutions. And I think a very good way of thinking of it is like the human brain. We have the left part of our human brain, which is there for logic, for calculation, for making decisions. And then we have the right part of our brain, which is there for creative action, for synthesize, for interpretation. And this is exactly how you can think about those two components of AI. There is the predictive AI that makes logical decisions and recommendations, what we've heard a lot about in the sense of machine learning also in the past. And then there is the new technology, the generative AI, which really helps us to take creative action, to synthesize information, to aggregate information up. And those two are most powerful when they come together. In the same way as our human brain, they act really complementary, and that is when they are most powerful. Now, generative AI, of course, over the last 12 to 18 months, with the rise of ChatGPT, has become a huge topic really broadly outside of academia in terms of what are the application areas. And we have spoken to executives, more than 1,400, really across the world, across the different types of industries. So in telecommunication, consumer products, financial institutions, and have surveyed them over the time in terms of what are the insights into AI and generative AI they have, where do they see the power, and how do they see this coming for 24. We have seen over the last 6 months a significant change in the assessment of executives and of the power of generative AI. And one thing out of this survey has become extremely clear: 24 will be the year of really scaling up the solutions, moving out of the first experimentation stages, bringing the solution really into business, and really scaling it up to deliver the full value. And what we've seen here is 71% of executives said they will significantly increase their investments on tech, and nearly 90% of them say AI and Gen AI is on the top 3 of their agenda items to deal with 24 and to really transform the businesses. Nonetheless, already being into the journey for like more than a year now, most organizations are not satisfied yet with the developments they have been taken so far. And more than two-thirds of them are really dissatisfied with what they have achieved within their organization so far, especially moving on from the traditional AI, from our left part of the brain, into the right part of the brain, the generative AI. And they have named 3 core reasons for them not to get there. The first one is lack of talent and skills. And here I think we have to clearly differentiate. There is very few people out that have extensive experience yet with LLMs and all the underlying technology. But one of the big challenges is also upskilling your workforce, upskilling everybody in terms of how to use this technology in an effective way. Most of them don't have a very clear roadmap in terms of how to integrate Gen AI in a strategic fashion across the organization and really scaling it up. Really moving from first experimentation into full retransformation of processes. And then the third one, very important globally, even more so in the European Union, is how to deal with responsible AI and what are the considerations that we actually want to put in. How far can we go, and do we want to go with that technology? How do we think about data security, about information security, and all of these topics? And how can we deal with that in a situation where everything in terms of regulation is still forming around us? So this is the third big topic that we have seen from the executives in terms of why they haven't moved as quickly as they would like to, and where they really aim to double down this year. There are, of course, also companies that are winners on this journey and that are clearly moving ahead. What we see for those winning companies right now is they focus on top-line growth by increasing their productivity. They leverage all this generative AI technology to take out repeatable tasks where the human is not adding so much value, and then focus actually the work on top-line growth. They are also upskilling very systematically the workforce, like everybody in the existing organizations. They are upskilling them, they allow them to use the technology, and there's trainings in terms of how can you use it in day-to-day situations, like call logs, how can you use it in supporting with emails and these types of technology. They think about the cost of use, what are the implications of using it, and how to integrate it. They all have built on the winning side strategic relationship with tech partners to be really on the forefront and being able to scale up. And they have been addressing the topic of responsible AI, having a governance structure around and really thinking about how to integrate it, how to quantitatively assess the risk, and also how to integrate it with the company's purposes, values, how far do we want to go from a governance perspective. And what we see, and I think this is a very important concept to think about when we think about generative AI and how to implement it. There's 3 different ways of actually using the technology: deploy, reshape, and invent. Deploy means we straight away use the existing technology in processes today without much further ado. Call summary is a good example where I can just use the technology and it summarizes for me the information. Reshape is really where I go in and rethink an existing process that I have. As Peter mentioned, I come from financial institutions, so I need to use a financial institutions example right now, I'm sorry. A good one is, for example, money laundering. Every bank has to detect money launderers. What you can do with those technologies is you can leverage the AI to make predictions on all the transactions. Then you can use the generative AI to actually write up the finding and to integrate it. So you really change the process of the human going in, looking it up, writing it. You really transform the process here. And then the last is invent. You really think about new business areas that can completely be changed through generative AI. What we see, in line with what I said before from the survey, most companies are still in the deploy stage, leveraging the technology straight away. And I think the big potential and also the focus for 24 is in the reshape, really integrating it end to end and like horizontally transforming existing processes with the technology. So I think so much for that, and really great opportunity for the year ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please take a seat. We've already learned a lot. Please take a seat. I've taken a lot of notes. I suppose that if the people here in the room know that I'm a guy from the generation of the Siemens phone, so I probably should have used a phone and have had this all transcribed or synthesized, or perhaps even just download your report about these findings, which I know also exists. But let's go a little bit deeper on a few of those things, and thank you again for joining us here. It's a real pleasure, and I would say an honor. We're all paying attention and taking notes. But first, before we get to the really deep questions, I just want to ask you one more time. I know you already explained it a little bit, but why is it called BCG X and not BCG AI?
That is a very good question, and in retrospect, giving Twitter changing the name to X, it may not have been the smartest, but we've been there first. We had X first, so BCG X. It comes from the fact that we actually integrated multiple units. We had a focus on AI, which was our Gamma unit. We had a focus on ventures build, which was called Digital Ventures. And then we had a pure IT implementation focus. And we decided within BCG, we bring all of this together in one unit to be as effective as we can. And then it was BCGX, and again, we've been first with the X.
It's great, and you know, I've got to say kudos also to your design team, because now I remember BCG slides being like white and green, and these ones are like black and green, so it's very modern. But in your business, BCGX, tell us how dominant, you said it's 3 or 4 functions that have come together. Tell us how dominant in BCGX your work on AI is now in terms of client interests and
AI, and especially generative AI, is one of the topics already of 23 and also in 24, and I will very clearly say, not only within X, not only where we develop the solutions, it's really across the company where we really help setting up the strategic approaches, how to think about it, really rethinking the processes. I think that is one of our core beliefs in X and in BCG in general. Whenever it comes to AI and technology, we talk about this iceberg, where we say 10% of the solution is the algorithm behind, 20% is the tech and being able to scale it, but 70% is actually the process and the change management, making people to adopt the technology, really rethinking the processes and all of that, and hence it is really a topic for the full company.
Yeah, I imagine it's an amazing topic to work on, and you already said what actually is the state of play, which is to say, on the one hand, companies are all convinced this is the year that they're going to implement AI, not just experiment, but implement. On the other hand, you said almost just as many company leaders say, but we may actually not be ready for it, which is a wonderful example of what Cynthia earlier on said, how you turn a problem or a roadblock into an opportunity.
Yes.
But tell us, what does a typical company, for example, here in Europe, what does a typical company look like that wants to implement AI but can't? What is their situation? Why can't they implement AI?
Yeah, I would say they have started in individual functions to deploy individual use cases. I think 2 areas where we see Gen AI being adopted very early is one really on the technology side and everywhere where there's code development itself, because this technology is very efficient in terms of helping you with the code. Another area, for example, is marketing, where it can be very efficient in terms of designing creatives and get these things. And what we see is those individual places, there have been initial builds been done. What we see now is really a step up, the agenda being owned really by the CEOs of the company, and really driving, I think, 2 things. One is the strategic roadmap. So what is our roadmap? What comes first? Which areas do we want to go at? And then the second, really, how do we do strategically the upskilling? How do we get everybody on board of that journey and make sure that we are not losing part of the workforce?
That's the strategy element of it. And of course, you guys are great in implementing strategy. But so it comes down to the fact that actually implementing AI in your specific job, like for example, for me, if I was writing an article, I could then implement AI, I could ask ChatGPT for some ideas, But you say, if you look at the bigger company that you're part of, that's really only 10% of the potential of AI. Is that it?
No, I would say it is the full potential if you do it right, but only having the algorithm. So only because I give you ChatGPT,
right,
it doesn't mean that you use it, or a lot of people will just not use it. It is really about getting the use implemented, getting people to understand what are advantages, how can I use it. Also very important, what are limitations? There are things that models, AI, Gen AI are really good at, but there are certain limitations. Making sure that people feel safe, have a good understanding, and really know where they can use it. Because I think what we've seen in very, very early stages, more than 50% of the companies immediately shut down the use of all of these types of technologies.
The legal department.
Basically concerns about data privacy and everything, and I mean, there have been breaches out there, of course, and so it was this, and now getting it in and making sure that everybody knows how to use it.
So there's the promise, which, because we had a survey here, a polling, you could say, in the previous session where we asked who of you uses AI every day, once a week, and then less than that, and the big majority here says either every day or at least once a week.
Yeah.
But you would say that in the companies you've studied, it's not that much.
It's not yet that much, and it's really about getting it in. Because, I mean, people stick to habits, people stick to the way of how they were used to deal with it. Then there is a lot of uncertainty. What does it actually mean with the data? How can I work with it? Am I safe using it? And this is not yet fully adopted.
And then, of course, on the other side, there are certain things that you cannot do with AI because it's not allowed, it's a gray zone, it might get you into trouble because you don't know about copyright, about patents, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think there is two of those. One is really like the legal aspects, where of course you have to have like a very clear approach and measurement and be very clear how to use it. We would also typically always see a human-in-the-loop approach. I think like AI and all of this technology is most powerful when you still have the human who has a look and who checks in a very efficient way. And then I think there is a second component, AI, generative AI, all of this lives based on data. So I need to have enough data and information. There are sweet spots of the technology, where the technology is really good and where you should use it, but there are also points where the technology is not as strong, where the human is way better. And really being also clear, what are the sweet spots? What is like the domain of expertise of the AI, I would say? Deploying it there, but also being very clear there are limitations where the AI is not that strong.
And so it's finding that sweet spot, that balance. I've done some confessions to the audience earlier on. I was actually one of the rare people who doesn't use AI very often, at least not actively or consciously. But I will tell you, just between us, that this week I did use AI. And I used it to ask it which companies in Europe, a list of companies in Europe, that have gone to the European Commission to complain about antitrust practices to the European Commission about some other company.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And you know what happened?
No.
ChatGPT told me I'm not allowed to tell you that.
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, good for them that they have put some legal barriers on it. But for me, as the one time that I wanted to give ChatGPT a chance,
it was not there.
I said it wasn't very helpful. But I understand that in general, actually, it is, and that it's really a big, it makes a big difference already at the pioneering companies, the 10% of companies that are ahead of the game. Now, let's apply this to this room, the people who are here. And you know that these are people that are willingly using AI every day or every week. So they're ready to go. Actually, we asked 2 people, and they were even coding AI, which gave me a heart attack, but, obviously is good for them. Now, they will have to go and choose for which company to work in next year or in 2 years' time. How can they make the right choice? How can they know which company is actually advanced in terms of its implementation of AI?
Generally, I think all companies will be. All of them are adopting. I would say what's interesting is, from my perspective, there is probably 4 different types of interaction. I would assume nearly all of you will be in contact with AI in their work life in the future. And I think there is like 4 different ways generally. The first one is like you really develop AI, your hands on keyboard, like programming. The second one is you shape the AI in terms of you design the processes, you think about how to integrate it, how you further improve. Then a lot of you will use it in their daily base when they reach out to contacts, leverage outputs from generative AI. And then, of course, there will be some of you that will govern the AI and look at the use. And I think in that sense, mostly everybody will be in close contact. I guess it's also a bit of a question in which type of function you will be.
And they're ready. We're ready. And I say we, and I mean they, because obviously I'm not. But they're ready, and today. They're ready for 2024. But of course, this is just, as you said, it's a technology that's actually has been around for longer than we realize with machine learning, algorithms, and so on and so forth. I'm going to ask you some personal questions about that. But also, I assume then a technology that the impact will come not just next year, but in the next 5, 10, 20 years. So if we now peer into the future, what can we do to be ready, not just today as individuals, but how can we stay relevant as workers? What are the skills that we should be working on to continue to be ready for AI in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly the work will, to a large degree, hopefully become even more interesting for us as the workers, because I think what a lot of the technology can do is like automatable, repeatable task taking out and really making us focus on the more complex cases, looking at those, helping design those. And in that sense, I think we will always be very relevant. One thing that I think will be extremely important is really understanding this, what are strengths and weaknesses of the technology, and what do I also need to be aware of when I leverage it, what are the limitations, where can I go, but where's also the power and where should I use it? And I think being aware of this and kind of staying on top of this will be something that will be very important.
I guess that gives us a reason to study law after today, that we know that, you know, somebody who knows about AI but also knows about its boundaries.
I would say law or like mathematics or data science or physics.
Right. Now, we have to admit that you are a little bit biased
slightly
towards the latter, because you actually have a PhD in, I suppose, data science and mathematics and all these complicated matters. So let's maybe, and I want to ask you about that now, but final question, how about you? How do you use AI in your daily work with BCG?
I would love to code a bit more hands-on keyboard. Unfortunately, I think I'm a bit too senior for that right now. I still sometimes do it just for the fun of it, I would say, but probably more on the weekends. Apart from that, using the technologies really sometimes to look up. What we have, or like where we use the technology within the company also, is we have a knowledge navigator where we have all the materials from past cases. And in the past, it was extremely painful to search something because you had keywords and then it wasn't working well. And now with the new technology, it immediately combines the information, it searches for it, and you can get it very handy. I think that is one of the application areas that I very much enjoy. I
remember, you know, I used to work in a very long time ago. I used to work for Bain. I don't represent Bain as well as you represent BCG. I know, you're in green, I should come in red. But and we had that library back in the day, you know, when the animals could still speak, of course.
Yeah.
And it's true that it was great, but it was hard to get access to the right cases. Yeah. And so I guess one of the consequences in my mind is that working for a top knowledge company that has a history of knowledge and cases and so on and so forth is going to be more powerful for workers going forward.
Exactly, because it really helps you to like get streamlined access to all this parsed information and knowledge in a very, very efficient way, and it helps you to pre-select. And what it doesn't only pre-select give you the core information, it always gives you the source and where is it coming from, but it makes all of that, like you have a way easier access to knowledge and content from my perspective.
So I feel like that's like something that we can take away when we choose a company, is choose a company that actually has a deep knowledge, because I suppose the AI that you use, the Navigator, I think it's called, right? Is it right?
Yeah, exactly.
The Navigator is one that is proprietary to BCG. In other words, you have to work at BCG, or you have to pay BCG to get access to it. Yeah. Now, that's amazing what we're learning about AI, and I have no doubt that there's going to be questions from the audience about all of that work. But before we get to the questions of the audience, I also want to ask you some more personal questions about your career and your life and all the things you've learned and how you got to become an expert in AI. And my first question is this. We've heard from you that you've done a PhD, which is amazing, and we congratulate you on it, of course, and we will call you doctor forever. But that also means, I suppose, that you didn't actually start to work in the real world until, what, you were about 30 or so?
25, actually.
Oh, wow, okay. You're one of those geniuses that finishes their PhD at, okay.
But I really, really enjoyed the PhD at the point in time, to be honest. No, I left working on like complex problems, like really complex problems, and I did my, at that time, I think I'm old, I did my diploma. There was no bachelor master's
there was no
at that
bachelor
point.
master.
So I did my diploma, and then it was a bit of a natural thing also, like for people coming from mathematics, physics, going in their PhD. And I was really passionate about like still going very deep, solving these problems. And I had the opportunity to actually travel around the world, go to different universities while I did my PhD.
Oh, is that right?
And that felt like one of the most amazing opportunities at that point in time.
Because you were studying in the north of Germany?
Yes.
Which, you know, wonderful place, but I suppose there's a lot of wind, there's a lot of cold,
yes.
And there's not so many people.
Yeah, exactly. That is about right. But then I had the opportunity to visit the Fields Institute in Toronto, to go to Tel Aviv, to Israel, like do my studies there. I had really the opportunity to travel a lot, work with a lot of different research groups, which was amazing.
Right.
And I wouldn't want to miss that. It was really amazing. But at some point, as you said, there was an interest of exploring also like real world problems, still being curious and applying complex solutions, but for something more, with more application in the real world. And like a very good friend of mine actually was working in consulting at the point, and then she said, maybe look at this, we also do, and this is basically how...
And you already dressed the part to work for BCG.
Exactly.
So you were ready to do that. And so you ended up working for BCG, I think. Did you always work in Munich? Were you always based here?
I started in Hamburg and then went to Munich. But technically, I was always located in Germany. But I've done very few of my work actually in Germany.
I see.
So I have worked from South Korea to the West Coast in the US, from like Norway to South Africa. I've worked in like plenty of places,
wow,
which I always found amazing, but have always been located in...
And so that's maybe, because we've been talking earlier about, you know, if you make your way in your career, that one of the crucial aspects to succeed is that you actually go abroad, that you get access to different countries and cultures. But basically, you're showing us a case where you can actually have your home country or one country as your base, but then still get all that international exposure.
Yeah, and I think that's, from my perspective, really one of the amazing things about consulting, the flexibility. Because I've always been able to live here, have my center point here, have
right,
a lot of my private life here, but still have been able to explore the work in all the different countries. And what we learn from them, what we take away, and the different, I mean, the interactions with our counterpart is the core piece of being successful. And it is so different. I mean, it's different working in the US than it is working in Germany.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
It's very different working in Norway, for example, and like getting used to this and exploring these opportunities. And I could do all of that while still living in Germany.
Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, except, I suppose, for your carbon footprint.
Yeah.
But that's another story. You know, at BCG, obviously you've been successful and you became partner, but you haven't really taken the beaten path, I would say, in the sense that, sure, you work for financial services and so on and so forth, but at some point you decided to join, and I don't want to complicate matters here, I know you work for BCG AI, BCG X, but actually at that point in time you joined a part of BCG which is called BCG
Gamma.
Gamma. Okay, so for those of us who've studied Greek, that's another letter of the alphabet. But what else is BCG Gamma?
BCG Gamma was really the core of the data science unit. And while, of course, within BCG, we've always been like developing models, applying those types of techniques, we decided to really double down our efforts on data science at that point. And while, for example, I was from the start working on these types of topics for financial institutions, we then decided to really double down, have this unit, focus on hiring also more talent, very specialized, And I found it like an amazing opportunity to go there at that point in my career, help also build something new within the company. Think about how should career paths look like for those roles? How can we integrate it well in our daily functional work, basically, which was that was an amazing opportunity, and hence I decided to join this and help develop, while of course still focusing on my work within financial institutions.
Right. And so, you take that sort of sidetrack in BCG that you work for a specialized division. Would you say, if you look at it more opportunistically from your career, looking back now that you're in global leadership, would you say that that was a good decision to sort of say, I'm going to try something new rather than the traditional path to become a partner?
In retrospect, it was something good. Though I would say the one thing that I have taken away from me is whenever I'm passionate about something and whenever I'm really passionate and I want to do this thing and I'm excited and curious about this, I think this is like when I perform best. And so I think it's a bit of an implicit outcome of this, but I was just extremely curious about like building something new. I mean, we don't have this opportunity so often in our life, and on a topic that is really close to my heart. So
yeah, I mean, listen, data science, it sounds like it's close to your heart. Maybe one day I can say the same. But and then what happened to BCG Gamma? Does it still exist, or is that now also part of BCG X?
It's part of BCG X because we brought the broader build and technology functions together, and it's part of that.
And so you are today still embodying, let's say, BCG Gamma by being the leadership of BCG X.
Exactly, and I actually lead our data science chapter as part of this also globally, so really still helping to design how should this look like and all of this, yes.
That's amazing. I mean, I guess that would make you the alpha of BCG Gamma, the leader of BCG Gamma. I'm going to stop with those cheeky jokes. It's clearly getting time for the audience. Some questions for the audience. If you have a question, raise your hand. Before we get to the questions, just a quick thank you for this interview on your career. And then now it's time for the student questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
We've got somebody over there, and somebody over here, and then somebody over there.
Hi, my name is Mi. Thank you for the great insights that you had. I assume that not all of your workers are ready or willing to use generative AI in their everyday work. So my question is, does BCG have any internal campaign or workshop to prepare your colleagues for the shifts in the ways of working right now?
Yes.
Good question, good question.
We actually do that a lot in a lot of different instances. So yes, we train everybody in terms of the use and the implications of those technologies with really on the technical side, what does it mean, but how do we actually adopt it? We have those like our knowledge navigator where we really encourage people, where we give trainings in terms of how to use it. And then, of course, we have a lot of specialized teams within the different industry areas that focus on working with the clients, that also skill up our dear colleagues and really bring this in. And yeah, as I said, we already use it a lot, and it's very powerful.
Excellent. Thank you so much. There was a question, I think, also there and here in the middle. So let's see if we can get to those questions as well.
Thank you so much for your speech. My question is regarding the newcomers to BCG. What qualities do you value the most? And what would students need to focus on when applying for an internship? Because personally, I'm interested in that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, there's three things that I think I have learned over the years that are most important to being successful in that line of work. The first one is being really curious about the topic. Like oftentimes it's like you go really deep and want to understand. I remember at one point when I was actually focusing on like building up like our data science unit, I was working not in financial institutions but on a grocery store. And I remember I was going there on a Saturday in the store to find out how do they place the products, how do they put the prices, because I really wanted to exactly see how this is done. I think being that curious will make a huge difference. Then I think the second one is you will at some point in your career get feedback, and in consulting we are oftentimes very feedback heavy. And sometimes somebody will give you feedback on something that you can do better. please take this on and really work on it. I think learning how to deal with this feedback and further improving, it's always tough when somebody comes to you and like gives you some advice what you could do better. I think it is so incredibly powerful to take it on and work on it. So be open for that. And the third point is be flexible. One of the amazing things about the job is like you can do so many different things. You will be so flexible. Though there's also one thing, if on Monday you sit down on your desk and have planned what you want to do for the week, this is never going to work out. So be open and like take this as an opportunity, work with your teammates and really be flexible. I think those are probably the three most important things based on my experience
That's great advice. Thank you so much. We got a question over there and then over there. And I'm going to let you ask your question, but I just want to ask you, as a follow-up, what was the best feedback, constructive feedback that you ever got at BCG?
Oh, plenty during the years. One very constructive feedback I got is ask for advice.
Don't sit on a problem.
You always have to sit on the problem and make it only yours. We have plenty of amazing colleagues. Go to them and ask them for advice. They will all be happy to help you. And I mean, sometimes I still forget, but because everybody is so busy, and you don't want to interrupt them in their daily work. But I think that is like so important.
That's amazing. Okay, we got a question over there.
Yeah. Thank you for your speech, first of all. You mentioned some sweet spots today in marketing, in data management, the usage of AI. But I have a question. Working at BCG, of course, financial projections is a big thing. How is AI used in financial projections, in financial forecasting? Because from my experience, using ChatGPT in financial forecasting or mathematics, it has a lot of errors. And is there an improvement in this area?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think this is mainly a topic more of the traditional AI. You can like now increase with generative AI technologies. From my perspective, there have been great advancements in terms of forecasting. There has been like the classical kind of time series approach that has been used for a long time. With the more advanced predictive AI technologies that are out there in terms of like gradient booster neural nets, this has significantly been improved, and there is amazing approaches out to do really like those forecasting in terms of what's going to happen. And what you can do right now is really layer Gen AI on top. I would say I see this mostly as an add-on that is still checked and not automatically being integrated.
Wow, that's exciting and scary at the same time. I'm about to buy a house, and I suppose that some AI program out there already knows whether that's a wise financial decision
I'm sure.
or not. But don't tell me the answer because I'm about to sign. Over there was a question. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for coming here and explaining what BCG is doing today in terms of AI. We know that BCG provides multiple services, building strategies for businesses and even governments. In the future, AI may offer the same service in terms of building strategies for businesses. Is AI a threat to BCG, and is BCG X a defense strategy towards other AI platforms?
Okay, thank you. Good question.
So, I mean, I would say AI will be an important part really to be integrated in all the different components. But I always think like adding like the human part on top is one of the things that will be most important. We have run a study also like with the Bruce Henderson Institute a couple of months ago, where we actually surveyed like what are the advantages and where's the AI good, but where do I really need the human actually in place? And what we've been seeing there are areas on pure forecasting, for example, where the AI is extremely good and clearly outperforming the human. But then there are areas in terms of complex business problem solving where a lot of unclear, unstructured, but especially like not clear information is coming together. And the interesting piece here is the human has clearly outperformed the AI and also clearly outperformed the people that started to use the AI and were not aware of the limitations. So hence, I think there will always be a very important work for all of us as well, and not only the AI. And I think those are the things that we really very importantly need to integrate.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I think we went through these questions from the students at a very rapid pace, and yet we learned so much. You know, I remember this last point that you make, that, you know, AI may outperform in straight tasks, but not in complex issues, and certainly also not when humans don't use the AI in the right way. That's, I think, a fantastic, insightful note to end on. I have to say, we have to thank you, of course, and we will, but I also want to congratulate our audience, because, you know, they really paid a lot of attention to everything that you said. I think it's because all that you said was so interesting. We learned a lot from you. We hope you can stay with us together with the other speakers for the drinks part, which obviously is not AI related. But for now, I want to thank you one final time for a very insightful learning from leaders.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.